AskReddit by Hamadathibt. What's the worst mistake you've seen someone do in their job? Update. The biggest question is what company is this? This was over 22 years ago in Asia. I apologize for not remembering the name, but they went under shortly after. Plant manager let the safety guy go because they didn't believe safety was a full-time job and wanted to cut back on company spending, and decided the supervisors could do all the safety audits, training, keep the building up to code. Not even a week later, two guys got their arms cut off working on a machine that they weren't trained certified on, and the back building caught fire due to pallets and cardboard boxes being stacked in the wrong area near the furnace. As the saying goes, if you think safety's expensive, try having an accident. Saw a guy get zapped pretty bad when he stuck a tool in the wrong place on a big dryer at a hotel where I worked. We had asked him if he should cut the power first, and he said no, don't need to. For a moment after, we thought he was dead. If he's not dead, he's so fucking lucky. I hope he never makes that mistake again. Forget they had cocaine in their pocket while crossing a border. This led the Austrian Border and Customs Police to open up about 100 cans of exposed film stock that was in the van the guy was driving. Film stock from a very expensive film shoot the week before. The result was second unit had to go back and reshoot an entire action set piece for the film. Line producer told me the mistake cost about 5 million euros. As a filmmaker, this hurt my soul. I worked at a car dealership several years back. There was a new mechanic who was there barely a week, and tasked to go fill all the brand new, top of the line, biggest diesel trucks on the lot. Diesel. The guy filled all the trucks with regular gas at the gas station down the street, then drove them back to the lot. He was fired pretty quickly after that. In the ER, doctor wrote down an order for 15 mg imatoradol, anti-inflammatory painkiller, and the nurse I was training misread and started to draw up 15 mg of Haldol, antipsychotic. That's triple the standard dose for Haldol. This was for a patient with abdominal pain. The nurse I was training didn't question it at all. This wasn't a newly graduated nurse, mind, just new to my department. Yes, I stopped her before she gave the med. No, she did not continue to work in the ER. At certain points in my life I have considered nursing. I love to learn. I like to help people. Medicine is really interesting. I'm not squeamish. I can turn on sense of urgency, movement speed, but I just know I could not handle any job where a minor fuck up can result in death. I think I will stick to jobs where misreading sloppy handwriting only leads to a silly story. Thank you for being there and handling it. An ID worker once sent an advisory to the entire company about an email several people had received with a malware link. She did so by forwarding the actual email with the link. I have a similar situation. Corporate email blunders. That happened a few years back. Some woman sent out a happy Thanksgiving reminder email about some potluck she was hosting to our entire company, a global bank. An email that was clearly meant for a few of her friends at work, as it was a potluck at her personal home in upstate NY. Most people just deleted the email, but of course a few dozen boomers decided to reply all with "please take me off this email chain," which started the chaos of endless emails about this fucking potluck for like a whole week because these people just kept replying all asking to be taken off the email chain. Honestly, it was hilarious lol. Oh, another one. Worked at a large casino in a large tourist city. The penthouse garden was being redone, and the gardener has put tarpaulins down to protect the tiles. A storm rolled through, and the tarps were blocking the drains, so the garden flooded back into the penthouse, down the left shaft, and into the restaurant I worked. Chaos. 2 years later, I'm working in a different hotel, same city. The restaurant had a fountain in it. I come in to open up one morning, and the restaurant is flooded. Gardener has turned on the fountain tap to refill and forgot to turn it off. It was the same gardener. Not sure if this counts, but during my first internship at a chemical plant I was given the task of reading through safety violation reports and sorting them. This turned out to be way more interesting than I initially expected, as the reports were riddled with accounts of sheer stupidity in the workplace. Here are a few of the most memorable incidents. A woman accidentally glued her own eye shut after trying to reattach a fake nail with industrial strength heavy duty superglue and then subsequently rubbing her eye. Someone somehow accidentally mixed an acidic compound from an unmarked bottle into their beverage and drank it. Common, not as much stupid as it is fascinating. A man working atop some scaffolding forgot to attach his safety harness and fell from 20 feet onto his back. The report stated that he stood up, somehow okay after falling from that high, and came back to work the next day good as new. Third guy's one lucky son of a bitch. There was a company in rural New York in the late 1960s that took scrap metal, melted it down in big coal-fired crucibles and made home decor pieces, doorstops that looked like little dogs, bookends, that kind of thing. Not a huge profit margin, but their materials were cheap and they had a steady market. An industrial consultant convinced them to transition to electric furnaces, significant upfront expense, but much lower ongoing operating costs. The consultant even designed the new electric crucibles for the company. The company president had been thinking of expanding operations, so asked the industrial consultant to double the size of the electric crucible designs. The consultant did so, but made a mistake with the cube square law in designing the supports for the crucibles. The first time the double-sized, but about 4 times as heavy, crucibles were filled with scrap and fired up, they collapsed, flooding the factory floor with molten pot metal and chunks of wrecked equipment. The company went straight to bankruptcy. Now, would that be fault of the consultant or the president? Because that's a fuck up. I worked for a startup cider manufacturer in my second year of college. Normally after a day of production we have to sanitize all the metal components in hot caustic wash. There are hundreds of pieces, so it takes a while. Anyways, our managers left us an hour before our shift ended to clean up. I had to go do some e-commerce end of day stuff before leaving, so my co-worker wrapped up the cleanup. On Monday we returned to the warehouse burned down. Apparently he left the caustic heater on all weekend and it caused a chemical fire. Everything was destroyed and it ended up bankrupting the company. He dropped out of his co-op degree after he wouldn't be able to get recommended for another placement. Deleted. Went to a new gyn about a lump in my breast. Immediate ultrasound, then silence. I called the office and the office person said, "Oh, you're fine." I said, "Really? I'm asking about the ultrasound." "Yeah, it's fine." 3 years later, my PCP asked if I had any lumps during a yearly exam. I said, "Yes, it's right there in my records. Same medical group and all have access to the same info." 2 days later I'm diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer. The rest is a whirlwind and I'm kicking butt. Smells like malpractice to me. I worked at a jail as a corrections tech. One day an inmate had an allergic reaction. This CO, let's call him Father, came into the tank with the nurse. This is an open tank. There are 15-20 other inmates in there. The nurse decided to administer an EpiPen. Father took the EpiPen from the nurse and tried to administer it to the inmate. Just to clarify, fully trained and educated nurse has a medical instrument taken by the biggest fucking idiot ever. He holds the auto-injector upside down with his thumb on the needle and plunges it into the inmate's thigh, releasing the needle into his thumb. The CO is on the ground. The nurse has no extra EpiPens. The inmate is about to fucking die. The other COs are on their way, but I have no idea how to relay what just happened. Luckily the nurse was able to go back to the nurse's station and grab another EpiPen before the inmate died. The kicker? Father only got a warning. He almost killed an inmate. That whole jail was a fucking circus. A local dealership was promoting a contest where they would give away a truck. I was driving around with my parents who were visiting from out of state when we hear the commercial for the giveaway on the radio. The drawing was in about 15 minutes, and we were right there, so we stopped in and put our names in the collection bin. I watched them take the bin upstairs out of sight of the crowd. They had clearly selected the winner in the back room and announced that if the winner was not present, they will contact them for the winnings. So they chose a winner that was clearly from out of state. But what they didn't realize was that it was my mom visiting for the weekend. She walks right up to the announcer, showed her license, and said, "I'm so happy I won the truck." The look on their faces was priceless. For the next couple of weeks, the dealership tried everything to not give us the truck. It was clear that they had no idea how to even give away the truck. But we prevailed. And I'm happy to say we loved the truck. Geez, why not just pick a fake name that they put in themselves at that point? Newish employee deleted the root directory for the SFTP server. Took the server guys about a day and a half to fully restore it, with all files since the previous night backup lost. Same employee did the exact same thing again a few weeks later. Still had a job when I left, somehow. That sounds like it's a problem on company side. How can such files be even deleted? Here all important folders are protected. Taught preschool for 8 years before the pandemic. It's protocol to count the children before moving from one room to another to make sure no one gets left behind. Had a co-worker on her phone, didn't count kids, and had left behind a child in the toy closet. Kid was 2 years old and trapped, screaming and crying in a dark toy closet for 20 minutes before a teacher passing by the empty classroom heard her. My co-worker didn't even get a slap on the wrist and management never told parents. This same co-worker forced her class of 2-year-olds to get dressed themselves for outside play in the winter, so one time a little girl ended up playing outside in the Minnesota snow without boots on for 10 minutes before my co-worker noticed. Why is she working with kids then, poor babies? Printed 500 copies of her gas bill on the company printer. The printer only has enough tray capacity for 250 copies, so she had to have reloaded the paper at least once. But why? I had a girl that worked for me that one day had a guy try to pay with a $100 bill. We all knew that we did not take any bill over a $20, but she didn't listen sometimes. This time she took the bill, and when she was cashing out her drawer, the smart safe didn't take the $100 bill. I asked if she checked it, and she of course said yes. I looked at the bill and noticed it said movie prop on the bill. She somehow missed it. Side note. Went to Unground rapper concert, and one of the better Mau rappers was throwing hundreds and 20s. Just to find out after they turned on the light they were all prop money. A girl on the till had a guy come up and buy a $2 pack of gum with a $100 note saying sorry he didn't have anything smaller. She gave him his $98 change and he left. He came back in a few minutes later and said, "Hey, I found a $2 coin in my car, can I have my $100 back?" So she did it. It was a small shop, so it was a tough scam to fall for. She also managed to lock herself out of her own car while it was running, but parked in a way that no one could get in or out of the car park. I had to read your comment a second time to find out what was wrong. I guess it would have worked on me, lol. Deleted. To be fair, it's a crappy safety system design if an employee is able to start up a machine while another is located in a danger zone. I used to work as a maid in a motel, and our usual supervisor was out sick. The person who took her place that day mixed ammonia and bleach in a window cleaner bottle and poisoned me with ammonia chloride gas fumes when I sprayed the bathroom mirror. If the maintenance man hadn't come by and found me unconscious, it could have killed me. For several months after, I had respiratory problems, vision issues, and a lingering burn in my nose and throat. Last year, guy died at his house. Daughter calls police for a well-being check. Police show up, dad's dead. Police called medical examiner, but he's old and died of natural causes. No need to bring him in the ME. The police call the daughter and tell her to call the funeral home. Funeral home tells officer they're en route to the house. 5 days later. Funeral comes to medical examiner to pick up body. I'm like, guy never came into the building, he was released to the funeral home. Let me go figure out what happened. Several phone calls later, we find out the funeral home forgot to pick up the guy and he was still at the house. Because he was now decomposed, he then turned into an ME case. I don't know what happened after that. Tough luck. Too bad the ME died of natural causes. Company director sent his travel plans for a work convention to the communal printer in the staff room. Bet him and the other director would have had a lovely time. 5 hotel. Presidential suite in Barcelona for a week sounded nice. His wife thought so too and was furious she wasn't going, also surprised that him and lady director were sharing a room for a week, and that when she looked into it there was no convention. Things went south pretty fast and now the company is no more. Sounds like our old president. Back in the day, the travel company left a message on his home answering machine to confirm the holiday, except he wasn't taking his wife. Unfortunately, she got the message first and that's how she found out about his girlfriend. I was working in a tool and I shop in my early 20s and I was watching an old guy, who was perpetually drunk, pound in an injector pin into a plastic injection mold with a big piece of steel round stock. Well, as he was pounding the pin in, he missed the pin and hit his thumb. It looked like his thumb exploded. He was in such pain he pissed himself. They ended up amputating down to the first knuckle. Then to make matters worse, he got fired for being drunk on the job. Deleted. Work in a brewery. One morning a brewer went to run a clean in place on a 60-barrel vessel. After the vessels are empty they usually are under some significant pressure, usually anywhere from 5-15 C. Guy did not degas the fermenter before taking the sample port off. These vessels had 2 ports on them and we put a 1.5 inch cap on one port and a per example faucet on the other. He starts with the stainless steel cap. All of the pressure came out like a bullet. I could hear from the other side of a rather large facility. Dude got lucky and the cap barely missed his head. He did get a bunch of yeast and hot residue in his eyes as his safety glasses were on top of his head and not covering his eyes. I drove him to the hospital and he's okay. Just got fired a couple weeks later. Bet he wears his fucking safety glasses now. Deleted. A lady in our sales department sent a racial message bashing foreigners and how cheap they all are to another coworker using our company email, which tagged the entire company. The CEO is also foreign. Told a newbie to clean the steel panels on the deep fryers, expecting them to wipe them down with a cloth. They instead grabbed a jug of water and decided to rinse it, with water going into the still hot oil. Yanked them back so fast I nearly gave them whiplash. And an answer from that, a colleague dismantled a machine to fix it without first checking the pipes were cleared. The pipes were full of melted sugar, very hot. He got horrific burns that made the skin slough off his hands. Sugar burns are insane. That poor guy. I'm a car mechanic. Had a colleague once, who had a pretty small job on an engine, about an hour or two and costs like $50. Made a mistake, quite big, but also quite common and easy to make. It's the well shit category, not something to drag him through the mud for. Started fixing it, made an even bigger mistake. At this point we even had to outsource some issues we couldn't fix in-house. We were looking for about 2 weeks and $500. On us of course, not the customer, but it was still okay. We got everything back. He started putting the engine back together. All done. First run. Oopsie, another big problem. Whole engine apart. Broke something again. Outsourced. Expensive. Overall it was about a month-long procedure, hitting $1,000. Once it was done, he got fired. He got away with a lot, but at one point it was way too much. Broke the spark plug while removing them. We had an old electrical engineer in my department, really knew his stuff except he was nearly useless on a computer. He didn't want everyone to know so he skated by and had other people pick up the slack for him. Though a series of blunders and lack of documentation on his part, he caused an electrical control box to be removed from the list of parts that we were supplying to the customer for that program. That was worth $12.5 million for revenue in the first 6 years once the product went into production. I'm a home appliance installer and was out working a pretty big job at some 20,000 square foot mansion. They had another installation team working on a second kitchen in the basement. One of these guys was drilling the mounting holes for the dishwasher into their granite countertop. Don't do this, okay, and drilled them too small. So when we went to secure it, a massive 4-foot chunk of granite split off and smashed into the floor, breaking a couple tiles in the process. Dude sounded like Yosemite Sam with his cussing and the customer was pissed. Yeah, that's not how one does that.